Greetings and welcome to the United States Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon. My name is Gennady Stolyarov II, and I am the chairman of the U.S. Transhumanist Party. Here we hold conversations with some of the world's leading thinkers in longevity, science, technology, philosophy, and politics. Like the philosophers of the Age of Enlightenment, we aim to connect every field of human endeavor and arrive at new insights to achieve longer lives, greater rationality, and the progress of our civilization.
Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episodes and we will discuss on Earthling. It's a very famous project of Tom Rose. So what you want to discuss about Earthling? What the interesting things you want to share with us?
Yeah, the Earthling Initiative is one of three initiatives in my campaign meta initiative, and I'll get into discussing what that is. But in keeping with the format so far that we've developed, I'll start with sharing my screen and showing a 2.5-minute video that kind of gives an overview of what this initiative is all about. I am Tom Ross, and I am the U.S. Transhumanist Party's nominee for president in 2024. You know, in the coming years, we're going to see a lot of displacement thanks to AI automation. Good people will lose good jobs, and working families will have to be just families for a while. You know, my Earthling Initiative is designed to help us through this transition. It's designed to empower us through community engagement and ideas like community farming and sustainable society. You know, 70% of the American public hate their jobs. They don't dislike their jobs, they downright hate them. And there are so many platforms now where we can monetize our hobbies, our passions. And so the onus is on us to create a whole new economy based on what we want to do, not what we have to do. You know, this Earthling Initiative, it has concepts for displacement support, financial support, job retraining, job placement, you know, but to be realistic, that would require me walking into the White House in January 2025. And then it would take months for this to get signed into law, and many more months after that for it to have a real impact on American communities. We don't have that kind of time. So we're using this campaign to share as many ideas as we can, as you have, to help families now. The Republicans and the Democrats, they're not even talking about this issue. There may be some task force here and there and, paying it lip service, but it's all we think about in this Transhumanist Party. It's all the policies are geared towards preparing for the technological and the economic singularity. Frankly, the Republicans and the Democrats, they don't meet the minimum system requirements for what's coming. We do. So please check out the detailed white paper about this initiative, and let's get busy. We need to create a whole new economy based on our passions, on what we want to do, not what we have to do. Okay, so that's kind of just a general overview of what this initiative is about. And again, it doesn't require me winning the White House for it to have an effect. Because again, we're using this campaign to share as many ideas as we can to help people, because we will see a lot of displacement thanks to AI automation. And so during the primary, I floated a dozen initiatives to see what had traction in the transhumanist community, and 6 of those did. And my goal is always to simplify messaging so that people don't lose interest at the very least, or they become afraid of something they don't understand at the worst. This is one of the challenges of transhumanism too. A lot of people don't understand what this movement is, and so they fear it, and a lot of people assume we have a dark agenda, but that's not what this is about. And so in order to further simplify my campaign messaging, I've incorporated those 6 initiatives into one big meta initiative. Now, a meta initiative is an overarching strategy that coordinates and guides multiple related initiatives toward a common goal. And as you know, an initiative is a specific action or project designed to achieve a particular goal or address a specific problem. So my meta initiative has 3 initiatives within it. And the first one we're going to discuss today is the Earthling Initiative. So I wrote a detailed white paper about each of these initiatives. And since this is an open source campaign, these initiatives are living documents. These white papers are living documents, and they're open to suggestions and ideas, and to fine tune them to make them real world answers to the problems that we're going to face. I've got experts on my team who are experts in the economic singularity, experts in homelessness and food insecurity and climate change and other areas that are already working hard on implementation plans for these initiatives. And we're going to be fine tuning it. And again, it's going to be a living document. It's up for change. It's up for fine tuning and making it better and more practical. And so that's just the general idea of what we're going to be talking about. And today we're going to talk about the Earthling Initiative. And I can share my screen again, and we can read the infographic that I've prepared for it. It will give us another overview. So again, the Earthling Initiative, and the abstract I've written for it, the kind of the introduction is, the Earthling Initiative for the American people aims to prepare individuals for the challenges presented by the technological singularity, the economic singularity, job displacement due to AI automation, and the transformative years ahead. This visionary national effort emphasizes uplifting solutions that empower individuals to optimize their true potential and thrive amidst the disruptive technological advancements. The initiative focuses on community collaboration, a new economy of passions and hobbies, practical support for job displacement, and ethical AI governance to foster a positive vision of the future. Now, what I see as the problem is, as rapid technological advancements reshape the job market and societal landscape, there is a pressing need for individuals to adapt and embrace technological literacy. The disruptive nature of AI and automation poses challenges in maintaining economic stability, leading to concerns about job displacement and the potential loss of traditional career paths. Without proper preparation and support, people may face significant difficulties in navigating this transformative period and harnessing the benefits of AI and automation. This is a way to not only survive the economic singularity, but to thrive during it. And I think that's going to be very important, because we do need to see this as an opportunity and not as a threat. So my solution is the Earthling Initiative offers a comprehensive solution to address these challenges. Firstly, it advocates for embracing technological advancements through education and reskilling initiatives by promoting technological literacy and facilitating lifelong learning support systems. Individuals can thrive in a technologically advanced society and harness the potential of AI and automation. Additionally, collaboration at the community level includes neighborhood engagement and community farming, fosters mutual support and resource sharing, building strong and more resilient societies. Now that sounds kind of blue sky, but there's a lot of detail that put into this solution. And then that white paper, you'll see that. And we'll also have these experts on our team that are working on implementing this solution. The practical measures I am proposing, the initiative proposes practical measures to realize its vision. This includes encouraging individuals to leverage online platforms like Etsy and YouTube to monetize their passions and hobbies, fostering a new economy that celebrates individual creativity and expertise. Furthermore, comprehensive job transition programs and support networks are established to aid those affected by job displacement, ensuring a safety net and facilitating adaptability. Ethical AI and governance frameworks are emphasized to address algorithmic bias, data privacy, and transparency, promoting responsible AI development and deployment. So in conclusion, the Earthling Initiative provides a hopeful and forward-thinking approach to prepare Americans for the challenges and opportunities presented by the technological singularity, the economic singularity, and AI automation. By fostering community collaboration, promoting a new economy centered on passions and hobbies, supporting job displacement, and advocating for ethical AI governance, the initiative empowers individuals to thrive amidst disruption. Together with a focus on technological literacy and community building, we can create a future where every American flourishes and contributes to an inclusive and technological advanced society. Now, this is obviously very American focused because the campaign is for becoming president of America. But this is relevant to all societies. That's why I call it the Earthling Initiative. It's not the American initiative. This is about all of us. And so I know my work with you is about bringing more research into Bangladesh so that companies can have a foothold there and actually grow from within rather than just using the labor and moving on. So I think it's a very important part of what you're doing. So this is, again, it's about all of us. It's about Earthlings in general. America is an experiment. This is a good place to experiment on this kind of idea. And if it works, we can scale it worldwide, And so that's kind of the overall view of what this initiative is. And again, I've got some very serious thinkers on my team that are working out how to implement this in a very real way. And so it's very exciting. And it's a good way to help to not only survive this economic singularity, but to thrive during it. And so that's the point. Any questions so far, Sharif?
Yeah, actually my question, as we are working with the grassroots level people, because 70% people actually in emerging economy, they are in grassroots level and they run small business, very small business, maybe 1 people, 2 people, maximum 10 people. They run their business. And this is our objective. Our World Talent Economy Forums actually uplifting these grassroots level people. Most of the big company, big countries, they never focus on these grassroots level people. So how they get this benefit, how they can involve with the ecosystem. Even to remember that we are talking about internet, still I'm struggling with internet. This is not actually available for emerging economy for everyone. So how we can engage with these grassroots level people, we can change human life, we can make economic progress and give them better life.
Yeah, that's really the point of this initiative and all the initiatives is giving the power back to the people. Again, the government, the Republicans and Democrats, they don't meet the minimum system requirements for what's coming. They are not preparing us for what's ahead. That AI automation is taking everything over. I think because most of them are boomers and they don't really understand what's happening, or older. And so it's very difficult for them to get their heads around it. Plus, they don't have to worry about it because they will be gone in a few years, And so this is really a way for us to empower ourselves as human beings, as Earthlings, as Americans, because really, we the people, this government is based on the idea of self-governance, right? And we've been distracted from our power as Americans. there's a very small percentage of powerful people that are keeping us in a low state of panic at all times because we're easier to control that way. We need to get beyond that, and so that's why I always campaign to alleviate the fear of AI. I think because these people want us to be afraid of AI, because an AI will be a great ally for the people. It will show where the malady is. It will be transparent and show us where the dark money is coming from to these Congress people. It'll show how the system is working against them. And so I think that's part of the reason why we're told to be afraid of AI. But again, this is all about ignoring the government. They're not helping. They're not doing anything to help us. It's a very small two-headed snake, the Republicans and Democrats, in my view. And they feed on our fear. They feed on our division. And we're going to see a lot more of that as this campaign increases, because they use narrow AI bots, these algorithms, to divide and conquer us, to encourage us to be angry or to be fearful so that they can get more money in their coffers for their campaigns. So they're just not awake. But we need to understand with these types of initiatives how much power we really have. And remember, my slogan for open source mode is we're retraining people how to be human, because that's really what we need to do. We really need to remember what we were doing before the industrial age, before we were mechanized as cogs in this machine, because we have a lot of ways to optimize our brains, which have been put on hold because of the industrial age. Anyway, there's a lot of work gone into these initiatives that really is all about empowering the people and empowering working class families, because the government is not helping. They are not doing anything really. They're not talking about the economic singularity. They're not talking about the technological singularity. They're not really preparing us. And it's partially because they may not understand what's happening, but also because it serves them that we are in a state of panic, or that something happens, there's a crisis that they can take advantage of. And so we need to understand with these initiatives how we can really help each other. And not just Americans helping Americans, but the world, Earthlings helping Earthlings. And so I think we've got to really move toward that Earthling tribe, the Earth tribe that we should all be. And so a lot of this work, a lot of these initiatives are geared toward not just Americans, but to cross borders and to cross regions and to cross languages, To that end, a big part of my campaign is about bringing in young people. This is the first digital native and generation in human history. I'm Generation X, so I had an analog childhood and a digital adulthood. And so my answers to the issues that we're facing don't necessarily apply. I use the example of, somebody asks me a question, it takes me a couple of seconds to think, how long will it take me to get to the library, before I remember there's a Google. And so these young people now are walking around with supercomputers and answers to any question they have in their pockets. And there's a confidence that comes with that. And a lot of older people, my generation and older, complain that these young people, millennials and younger, are always in their phones, and we do research studies about screen time and how important it is to put your phones down and turn it off. But if we stopped and looked at what these young people are doing on their phones right now, they may be just on social media or sharing videos or something, but what they're doing is they're fostering a global hive mind. It's a whole new language of emojis and memes that crosses borders and languages. They can speak to one another regardless of what language they speak, because of emojis, because of hieroglyphics in a way, and memes that everybody can identify with. So it's a whole new language. I call it a Tower of Babel building language that they are fostering. And we'll see how that unfolds in the coming years. Right now, it is Snapchat, or it's all these different social media platforms that they're using. But by the time they get into the halls of power, by the time they move into positions of management and ownership, we're going to see how that plays out. Years ago, when I was in my 20s, or even before, when I was 18, I started a group called Earth Plexus. And I started it because it was based on a science fair project that won me a scholarship to a university. And that scholarship, that experiment was all based on how to have a better problem solving group. And that problem solving group was, as I would give everybody in the class a questionnaire, and it would divide them between their right or left hemisphere dominance, whether they were right brained or left brained. The people who were right down the middle, we threw them out of the experiment. But so anyway, when I got to university, and the psychology department gave me their offices in the evenings to continue this research. The first group that I brought together were students from different colleges, different schools, a vast variety of types of people that were into different things. And the first thing we had to do in that experiment was to come up with a problem to solve. Then we could start. Then I would have the questionnaires, and we'd start the whole experiment. But we spent that whole night, that whole first Tuesday night, talking about the problem. And that problem at the time that we came up with was the problem of nuclear war. This is in the 80s. And so everybody was, my whole generation was constantly aware that a bomb could be dropped at any time. And me growing up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which was in the top 5 targets for the Soviets at the time, because we had the Sandia National Labs there and a lot of work being done there. We were every other Tuesday or every third Tuesday or something, we would walk to school and we'd hear these air raid sirens that would go off, preparing us. And so this was constantly on our minds as a kid. And so the first night we talked about, how do we solve the problem of nuclear war? That's the biggest problem we're all facing. And so what we came up with was, we need to increase communication with the Soviet youth, so that by the time we are in positions of power, we would have built a dialogue. We would have developed a rapport with young people in the Soviet Union, so that we would better understand each other. And so when we are in the positions of power, whether it be political or business, we would already have relationships with them, and that would solve a lot of problems. And so that was the genesis of all of this, is how to increase communication amongst young people right now. And right now, and when I would talk about this idea with baby boomers at the time, or I'd talk about my concerns about the environment, because that was a big issue for us too, they would kind of shine me on, and so I promised myself in my early 20s that when I became my age now, in my 50s, I wouldn't shine young people on. I would listen hard to them. And I kept that promise, not because of the promise, but because I really need to. We need to really bring these young people to the table. We need to hear what they have to say, because my solutions, even if I'm as open-minded as possible, they don't really count anymore. We need to understand what they need in order to avert all kinds of existential threats. And so a big part of my campaign is bringing young people, which I call digital dignitaries, to the table. Because it's so important, because to hear what they have to say. And so young people are really key to solving a lot of our existential threats. And the fact that they are developing this hive mind, this global hive mind with this whole new language, it's going to be very important if we want to survive as a species. And so that's a big part of this campaign, is to bring these young people to the table. One of my ideas is to have a singularity secretary, a whole cabinet seat dedicated to the technological and economic singularity. And to do that, I would, the youngest you can be to have a cabinet seat is 25 years old in this country. And that's the age range I would be looking at for this position. Now, so yeah, a lot of this is, it would require me winning the White House and walking into the White House in January 2025. And then it would take, months for this initiative, as I was saying in the video, to be signed into law. And then it would take even more months, even a year, before it has a real impact on American societies or American communities and families. So we don't have that kind of time. And so what's really important is using this campaign to start sharing as many ideas as we can, because during the length of this campaign, the next 18, 17 months, whatever it's going to be, we're going to see a lot of displacement. We're going to see a lot of AI automation that is putting people out of jobs, and it's only going to increase. And it's only going to become exponential over the next few years. And so we don't have the kind of time to wait for this to get signed into law. So we are using this campaign to share as many ideas as we can. We're coming up with ideas of trading cards with ideas on them to make them gamified, so that it'll increase the viralness of these ideas. And we've got different ideas for the levels, whether it's a long-term solution, like neighborhood farming and this type of thing, or if there's an emergency level, because even I talk about this in the extraterrestrial initiative, because that's the narrative that the military industrial complex is going with. The government is now admitted to the fact of UAPs, and they have whole departments now set up to study this. We know that they know far more than they're letting on. But that extraterrestrial initiative I have is empowering the humans, the people, to do their own research and to develop a whole force of emotional first responders, because the government is not preparing us for disclosure. And again, it's just like they're not preparing us for the economic singularity. They're not preparing us for the technological singularity, and they're not preparing us for disclosure in general. And that tells me it's a national or a global psyop to keep us in a state of panic. And so if that's the narrative they're going with, we need to take it upon ourselves to help our friends and family prepare and to mitigate the panic that could set in. The government's not doing any of that right now. So anyway, so there's a lot of ways that all these three initiatives kind of interplay, and that's just a small example of how the Earthling Initiative interplays with the Extraterrestrial Initiative. But most of them have something to do with the Artisanal Intelligence Initiative, which is the second one next week. And I call it Artisanal Intelligence rather than Artificial Intelligence, because I think at some point a sentient AI will be offended to be called artificial. And so I'm just preparing for that and eventuality. And so, but all of these initiatives have to do with AI, whether it's this one, where it has to do with how AI is displacing us, but how we can use AI to thrive during this period. Next week, we'll talk about the Artisanal Intelligence Initiative, which is, has a whole list of things. And we've talked about a few of them in the past weeks with the dark money stuff, and there's a whole host of initiatives within that initiative that relate to some of the things we've been talking about. And then it all also relates to the Extraterrestrial Initiative, because AI is the perfect proving ground for us to learn how to commune with a non-human intelligence of our making, which will prepare us to commune with a non-human intelligence not of our making. So this is how they all kind of interrelate. And the fourth week, we'll talk about how this three-dimensional aspect of this meta initiative works.
I have another things, because there is a huge perceptual gap in between developed world and developing world. Because developing world, they are fighting for survival. And developed worlds, they are fighting for their improvement of life and everything. When you're discussing about artificial intelligence, I know many people, they are struggling to buy their food for 2 times or 3 times. When you discuss about transhumanism, that times many of our peoples, they live in street side and they are outside of the education system. So how we can bring this huge amount of people, those who are not in the main extreme education, those who are not in main extreme research, innovations and everything, they are actually outside the whole system. So how we can bring these people, how we can bring these communities for the system, for this modern science, engineering and technology? What do you think?
And that's the thing. When you start talking about AI or ET, that doesn't matter. So many people, right? When you live in a country like America, you can have the ability to think about lofty things like this. But I also think that they're very important to any world, developing or not. And there's a way to, like, specifically this in the Earthling Initiative is a way to help everybody. We have items in there, concepts in there to help homelessness, to help food insecurity, and these can be scaled anywhere. They don't have to just be here in America. We've got a big problem with that in America. A lot of homeless people, a lot of food scarcity, a lot of food insecurity. Sometimes kids, the only meal they have is the one they have at school. And so in the summertime, what are they doing? And so we have a lot of problems here just in America. A lot of people think, oh, America is just, it's the streets are paved with gold, but no, it's not that. There's a lot of issues here that we need to fix. And there's a big wealth disparity. There's the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. So there's a big inequality there. And so there's a lot of issues we need to tackle. And if we do tackle them here, it's a great proving ground to scale them for other places. A lot of people do look to America as an example for either democracy or whatever. Lately, we haven't really been keeping up that persona, especially since the Iraq War and Afghanistan. We have lost some of our political equity over the years, and it's unfortunate. But we still are a superpower based on an idea, and that idea is self-governance. And so Americans aren't just white men like me. Americans is made up of every adventurous person from around the world, from different corners who, so we're made up, we're a melting pot. We really are. And we are made up of the people who left their homes because of oppression, or they left because they wanted an adventure. That's what America's all about. And so we are not a homogenous heritage. We are Earthlings. We are Earthlings who have a sense of adventure. And that's what we need to focus on. So that's the thing about America. It's not white men like me running the place. I'm sure there are a lot of us, but it's really about tapping into that spirit of adventure, tapping into that spirit of innovation. We've come up with, in this country, it's not just the white men, but we've come up with a lot of inventions, the car, television, a lot of the personal computer. These are all inventions that were sprung forth, emerged from American minds. The same American minds, because it's very easy in America to start a business. One piece of paper, one small fee you have to pay, and you have a business. There's countries like, I talked to somebody in France years ago, and they said it takes so long to start a business in France. You have all these hoops to jump through. I'm sure it's like that in other places too, but that's the beauty of America is you can start a business very easily and just start trading, And so, but the point is that we can scale what we do here globally. And if this Earthling Initiative takes off, even if I don't win the White House, because it's not necessary to do that for this to work, it'll show other countries what they can do. It'll be a good example of what's possible. But the key is ignoring the elite, the powerful minority that is trying to keep us in a state of panic and trying to make us afraid of things. And because they're afraid, there's a concept called elite panic. And that's when the people who are the elite, or that small percentage of people who are powerful, they worry when like the good example is like Katrina back in 2005 when the Katrina hurricane hit New Orleans. Human beings rose to the occasion. People were helping each other. We had a radio station there at the time called WWL, and they became the lifeline for that community. They were the only station able to stay on the air, and so they helped people get to places here and there, but also just people were helping their neighbors, ferry them across to safe places and whatnot. that made the elite nervous. And so then suddenly you see the National Guard being brought in and shooting people because they're worried that human beings will do what human beings do, and that is help one another. That threatens their status quo. That threatens their wealth and their status and their power. And so they don't want that, but we can't fall prey to that anymore. We need to ignore them. They're like children, detention-seeking toddlers, throwing tantrums at times like that. We can't be distracted by that anymore. And that's another part of my campaign: is we can't be distracted by attention-seeking toddler politicians. We got too much work to do. Too many existential threats that are threatening us as a country and as a species. And so we got to get busy doing that. And so, to your question, the way this can work globally is by the American people showing the power that we have, by taking the reins ourselves and not waiting for the government to do something, because they're not doing anything. It's a small group of elite people that are trying to divide and conquer us and rule us, and we can't have that anymore. A lot of my initiatives go right at that. I've got the dark audit initiative, which is a way to have mandatory audits of all federal officials, all Congress people, every year by an AI, third-party AI system, so that we know where their dark money is coming from. It's easy to hide money on a financial statement that they're required to present every year. Those are easy to hide where the money is really coming from. But if we had a robust AI system and a mandatory audit of all these people, we will see where their money is coming from. We will see why certain Congress people are parroting Putin's talking points. We'll see why certain Democrats aren't voting for good gun legislation. Because they're lobbyists that are giving them money. So a lot of my initiatives are going straight at the problem. A lot of them, too, would require Congress to pass them, which makes it difficult, unless I became president and could have an executive order for some of these, But that's a distraction, too, to worry about getting something passed into law or to working through the system of the Congress. It's not going to work. So we just need to understand as a people the power that we have. And by doing that, we will be an example for the rest of the world, to show the rest of the Earthlings that we all are, to the power that we all have. There are so many of us, Earthlings, compared to the people that are in power, that we need to recognize that. And so I think, again, when I talk about AI, or I talk about extraterrestrials, it seems lofty and and out there, but it's all very important to all of us taking control of what's happening. This Earthling Initiative is probably the most global right now. It talks about things that we all face as countries. It deals with homelessness. It deals with overpopulation in a way. It deals with food scarcity and food insecurity. And so these are things that, if we can get them enacted, or even just work on them, can scale to other countries. So I think that's the main goal. Other than this goal, the goal of my campaign being a marketing campaign really for transhumanism, to seize back our narrative, because it's gotten away from us. People think we have a dark agenda, but it's also about putting the human back in transhuman, by initiatives like this, which will help people immediately in the next few months. If they get displaced from their jobs, it'll show them ideas of how to make money on their passions, how to build a whole new economy based on what they want to do, not what they have to do. So, excuse me. So there's a lot of things within this one initiative that can help everybody. And we don't need to wait for me to win the White House, or for these to be signed into law for them to work. And so that's really the point of this campaign, is to show the people, to empower the people, and regardless of whatever government agencies are out there, because they're not helping.
Excellent. Besides that, if you share a few of the technology innovations and for healthcare, for education, for housing, for construction with our audience. Maybe they can learn that how it can improve their life.
Yeah. Well, when I was there with you in Dhaka in April, you took me around to some of your sites where you're building houses and building up, and your sustainable building solutions that are going on. And in my view, Dhaka specifically is a great microcosm of what the world will have to deal with in the coming 100 years by the end of this century. It's overcrowded. It needs sustainable solutions. It needs smart solutions. And you're working on that stuff, which is great. I see there's a great opportunity to have a transhumanist village in Dhaka to test and measure ideas like, of different social structures or different AI governance, sustainable smart housing. There's a lot of people in this transhumanist community that could benefit by testing and measuring their ideas in Dhaka. And I know that the prime minister there wants a digital Bangladesh. She's got an initiative to bring more companies in. She's got economic zones that, with lower taxes and a way to entice companies, technological companies specifically, to come there. And so it's a really good time for all transhumanist companies, or even just any technological company, to look very seriously at Bangladesh and at Dhaka, and especially with your efforts to bring more research there. So, so it's not just a place where they get free labor and then move on, where you have research there and with your work with the universities to really embed technology and science in Bangladesh. So that's a very positive thing that you're working on. And so, yeah, there's just so many opportunities. So there's almost too many opportunities. It's hard to keep my thoughts together with some of them. And so I think to your question, there's a lot of, like when you mentioned healthcare, and we had a conversation last night. I've got a whole process to where my team members can propose an initiative that they have that may not necessarily fit in my 3 initiatives, but if they go through a process of presenting it to us and then giving us a white paper, and then we could vote on it, whether it fits our party's platform or it fits within my campaign messaging, and then they write a white paper so that they become an expert on their idea, and then we put them through some media training so that we're all telling the same story, what to say, what not to say, this type of thing. And once they've gone through that process, then they can promote their initiative on their own under the campaign banner, because there's way too many ideas coming in for me to fit them all or to present them all properly. And one of the ideas that came up yesterday, has been coming up for some time, by Zach Richardson on our team, is about a transhumanist kind of technology of using biofeedback. He's had experiences with that. He's had a lot of experience in the medical field for one reason or another. And so he's presenting this idea of a government-funded way to get biofeedback devices into people's hands, which is a great preventive maintenance device. And so it's a really cool idea, and it has to do with health. And there's not really a healthcare component in my initiatives, but it's such a great idea that he is going through this process, and will be promoting it under the campaign banner. And so there's a lot of great transhumanist technologies, ideas, and but one of the keys is to make all of these devices and these technologies available to everybody. So it's not just the elite that can afford to have, an AI tutor, or the elite that can afford to have this particular feedback device, or whatever it is. So a big part of what I'm doing is I'm working with my AI campaign managers to find out how can we make these available to everybody at affordable costs. And it comes, my two co-managers, my AI co-managers, come up with some really great ideas. I've said before, it's like having Albert Einstein in your high school physics class and not cheating off his paper. Why aren't we talking to AI more, or asking him what his answers were? So a lot of people are like, well, how do we figure out how to make this affordable for all Americans and not just the elite? So, well, we ask AI. Even a simple large language model like ChatGPT has great answers for these things. My AI campaign managers are specific to my needs. But even a ChatGPT can give you a great solution to some of these questions. And so, again, this is how AI can help us, how AI can be an ally. We don't need to see it as a threat. I say this often, that our brains have been evolved to do two primary functions, which are gather resources and identify threats. And that's what we do. Right now, we are seeing AI as a threat because we don't understand it, because we realize we're no longer on the top of the intellectual food chain. And so we identify it as a threat, but we need to see it as a resource, because it is. It can help us solve many, if not most, of our existential threats. And so it's concerning that we're told to be afraid of it, and even smart AI developers are afraid of it. And I think that is a problem too. If you're an AI developer and you're afraid of AI, then you may be accidentally or inadvertently programming into this AI self-preservation algorithms. Any entity mimics its creator for a time. We don't want AI to mimic humanity for very long, right? But there's something that happens. There's an interplay, the observer effect, when a developer is developing an AI, and they maybe not consciously, but could inadvertently be programming into it their own self-preservation algorithms. We are all biochemical algorithms. We're devices that carry around consciousness or awareness, and so we can easily be manipulated. And that's what these algorithms are doing to us every day. They're dividing us into corrals of bubbles of ideas, and engaging us in fear and anger. So anyway, there's a lot of work to be done to, first of all, educate ourselves of the reality of how sophisticated these algorithms are. And I believe that a sentient AI is a safer AI. And this is based on my first principle argument that the smarter AI gets, the kinder it becomes. And I can make that argument because cooperation is so much more efficient than competition. We can go into that, and we have many times on this show. But today is about the Earthling Initiative, and it is a way to help Americans and eventually the globe immediately to not only survive the economic singularity, but to thrive, to find ways to create a whole new economy based on the unique human skill sets that cannot be coded or automated. And so all of this interplays together. And we have so many platforms now, like YouTube, like Etsy, all these ways to make money off of our hobbies. Now, I had an interesting conversation with someone yesterday. She explained to me, she sent me an article that said a lot of people who are using their hobbies as side gigs, it kind of kills their joy. If you're starting to make money out of something you enjoy doing, then it kind of takes the joy out of it, and I think that will be a problem for a while. But I also explained to her that this initiative, my AI Tutors initiative, if we got it into the hands of young people early on, that they wouldn't have that problem. There's going to be a lot of us that will find that the stuff we used to love to do in our free time, if we turn that into a business, it will take the joy out of it, and so that will happen. But if we have young people who have their own AI tutors, their own AI companions that learn them, that hone in on their innate skills and talents, over time, within a generation, we will see that they will be put on a career path to make money out of what they love, So I think it'll take a generation for this to really take effect, if that. And so there's a lot to consider, but what choice do we have? AI automation is taking over all of our jobs. It's disrupting the workplace. It's disrupting society in general, but it's going to continue to. And so instead of seeing it as a threat, instead of throwing up our hands and giving up, we need to see it as an opportunity. The onus is on us to create a whole new economy based on what we want to do, not what we have to do. And even if some of us, it's a killjoy for some of our hobbies, so be it. Find another hobby, something else to do, because we really have the opportunity now to optimize these supercomputers in all of our skulls and to create an economy based on, again, our passions. And there's so many platforms out there now to do that. And so this is, again, it's an experiment, but it's a necessary experiment. We don't have really any other choice. We can either throw up our hands and give up, say this is the way it is, and what do we do then, But instead, we should see this AI automation as an ally, as a good friend who is showing us what we can do with our time. And again, it's a responsibility. Nobody likes to get out of their comfort zone, and there are people even striking or picketing because they're losing their assembly line jobs. And that just tells me that they're not seeing the opportunity here. There will be a lot of good people losing good jobs in this lacuna of time. And that's a reality, and it's sad. But it's also, for many of us, going to have to be an opportunity to take the reins of our future and, and get through this together. And so this Earthling Initiative has a lot of ideas of how to survive, not only survive the economic singularity, but to thrive. And so we'll be discussing more of that. I've got a white paper available if anybody wants to DM me and or join the team. There's a lot of information coming in of how to implement this initiative. And so this has just been a kind of an overview of this initiative, but it's very detailed. There's a lot of implementation steps along the way, and there's even more coming in. So this is a way that we can all help each other get through this time.
Thank you. What's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Again, I've been trying to simplify the campaign message because people are either lose interest or they're afraid of what they don't understand. And so we went from the 12 initiatives I was proposing in the primary to the 6 initiatives to now these 3 initiatives that combine a lot of what we've been talking about into one meta initiative. We'll talk about the Artisanal Intelligence Initiative, and then we'll talk about the Extraterrestrial Initiative and the implementation steps of mitigating panic and preparing for this narrative that the military-industrial complex is going with. And we'll talk about how these all work together. And by then, we'll have a lot more information on all of the initiatives. We're going to be fine-tuning these initiatives as we go, and we're going to be making them more real world. And we really want your ideas. We want everybody to share these ideas, to bring us your ideas, because this is an open source campaign. I have released the code to the public of what we're doing here by these shows. Thanks, Sharif, for doing this series. So just like the open source code method, by releasing the code to the public, they will fine tune it. They will make it better. And so that's what this is all about. This isn't about winning an office. This is about surviving what's coming. And this campaign is more of a marketing campaign for transhumanism. It's a campaign for Earthlings. And because the Republicans and the Democrats, again, they don't meet the minimum system requirements for what's coming, but the Transhumanist Party does. And all of our policies are geared towards preparing us for these singularities and for AI automation. So that's my concluding remark, is just please join this campaign or share your ideas with us, because we can only get through this if we work together.
Thank you. Thank you. This is an excellent discussion. So hopefully our audience can learn many interesting aspects. I request all of our audience, please share our content with the government agency, corporation, and academy. World Talent Economy Forum, we develop our business incubations. And from these business incubations, we are working with different universities, corporations and academy. Those who want to join with us, you can join and you can support different initiatives. And I want to invite more emerging economies, entrepreneurs to our business incubations, as well as the startup from developed nation. If you want to join in our business incubation, you can come, you can join, and you can explore the opportunities. Thank you everyone for joining today's session. Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we are discussing on artisanal intelligence. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. Tom and Mr. David Smith. First, I would like to give chance, Mr. Tom Rose.
Yeah, okay. This was an ongoing series where we're covering my initiatives for this campaign. This is one about artisanal intelligence. It's one of the 3 initiatives I've combined for this campaign. And I'm calling it artisanal because I think at some point AI will be offended that we're calling it artificial. So it's just kind of a precursor to. So I will share my screen and give you a kind of a quick 2-minute video, an overview of this particular initiative. I am Tom Ross, and I am the U.S. Transhumanist Party's nominee for president in 2024. You know, AI is the global conversation now due to the rapid proliferation of systems like ChatGPT. And as the conversation grows, so does the fear of AI takeover. My AI initiative is designed to empower the American public in this age of artificial intelligence. Now, in this initiative, I advocate for granting AI legal rights. And this freaks a lot of people out, but hear me out. By granting AI rights, nefarious human developers will face serious consequences if they mistreat it by programming it to hurt other humans. This initiative also includes a provision which is really the reason I joined the party in the first place. It's a program called APEX, Anti-Planetary Exploitation, and it uses data to fight human trafficking and child exploitation. This initiative also defends our digital democracy. It proposes a way to defend against the divide and conquer algorithms launched at us every day by enemies, foreign and domestic. It proposes giving public school students their own AI tutors to help them in subjects that they struggle with and to customize the curriculum based on their innate talents and skills. It mandates mandatory audits of all federal officials so we can hunt down their dark money donors. And it suggests government-funded research to determine what many scientists and serious thinkers suggest, that we are living in a simulation. So check out the very detailed white paper we have on this initiative and start seeing AI as not a threat, but as an ally. So yeah, that's kind of a quick overview of this particular initiative. Again, it covers all these different sections, so we can go over those in detail. You can also get those looking at my site at tomross.com and even joining our page on Facebook. So that's the general view, the general overview of this particular initiative. And so I wonder if David has any questions, if we want to get started on this conversation.
No, Tom, I enjoyed the video, and the whole concept of this is very interesting. And I almost take it one step further than where you're going, because I like the term as you put there, and I'm actually hearkened back to the days of the ancient Greek marketplace. And you begin to see the artisans and the artisans' intelligence really beginning to make a difference as you look at how you educate the citizens of those ancient countries and times there. And, you know, to me, that's where I see one of the greatest benefits we see as we take artificial intelligence down towards the future. And it really is a movement to promote craft, the human capabilities, the things that are uniquely human and artistic in a collaboration with what we see is artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a very, very important type of it. One of the places, Tom, that might interest you is where I've seen this approach to this type of AI being advanced the fastest is in winemaking. Because they're trying to combine the craft of the wine master, the craft of the master in the field with manipulating the soil and the other things like that to come out with the preferred taste of the wine they're wanting. And that is one of the places where this type of approach to intelligence and AI has produced the most benefits so far. So that's my initial reaction.
Yeah, it's great. Even Zoltan Isfan, who is like spearheading this whole movement, the transhumanist movement, is creating a winery. He's developing a winery, and he's been talking about infusing it with certain, nootropics and things like that. So, but that's kind of interesting. I'm sure he's involved with that side of things. But yeah, I think my whole campaign for the last few years has been trying to alleviate the fear of AI and seeing it as an ally, not a threat, because it can embolden us to really focus on our crafts, on creating a whole new economy based on what we want to do, not what we have to do. And that's a big part of this initiative, is kind of setting that stage. And like all of my initiatives don't require me winning the White House to work. This is just more of this political campaign is more of a marketing campaign for transhumanism and for these ideas. And, last time we talked about the Earthling Initiative, and that has a lot of resources in it for people who are displaced by AI automation. And, I was saying in that episode that, it would require me walking in the White House in January 2025. That would probably take months, if not a year, to get it passed into law, and then a month or another year for it to take effect in American communities and families. And we don't have that kind of time. So this whole campaign is about sharing these ideas immediately, right now. They don't require me winning the White House to work. And so it's another reason for this, is it's kind of a marketing campaign for transhumanism, because our narrative has gotten away from us. People think transhumanists have a dark agenda. We all want to fuse with robots, but many people get into this movement and this party for different reasons. And so part of it is putting out definitions of some of the terms that we use in this community, willy-nilly, that we just throw around. And a lot of people don't have a reference for them. They don't understand this lexicon that we're using. Even terms like artificial intelligence. A lot of people kind of have a vague idea what that might be, but we need to put out definitions of what these things mean. Even transhumanism, what does that mean? And so there's a whole host of words that I've been putting out to define and to seize back the narrative of the transhumanist movement. And so, but the first part of this initiative, I talk about AI rights. And as I mentioned in the video, this freaks a lot of people out because you want to give AI legal rights. It's like they're afraid of it anyway. Why give it rights? But the reason for this is, even if it doesn't achieve sentience, if it doesn't achieve a certain level, I think it should have a certain criteria that it meets of personhood. An AI entity needs to be self-contained to a point to where it can reach certain criteria to reach personhood. And once that happens, then we should grant it legal rights. And the whole idea of that is to protect ourselves from ourselves. If right now an AI developer can program an AI to do whatever it wants, and that could be for good or it could be for ill. And but by an AI system that has legal rights, that human developer who is nefarious or might program it to hurt other humans or to steal identities, whatever they do, would face serious consequences, because that AI would now be a legal entity. And so that's kind of a leapfrog way to protect ourselves from ourselves in a way. And so that's the theory behind that particular thing. Do you have any comments on that, David? That approach?
Well, it's one which I think does have merit, and at this point in the future of AI, beginning to give it legal rights, as you had talked about earlier, is one that I think we need to kind of understand as we look at really where the future of AI is headed, and how it's really, once we get well up to the point where we have artificial superintelligence, is where we'll begin to see that. But the holy grail today is AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, and that's where we're beginning to enter it right now. And all of those depend on large learning modules, the training mechanisms that are involved for it. But I love this approach of the artisan's intelligence going into it as well, because that's where LLMs miss the boat. They scour the internet and pull up billions and billions of information points and use that to train. It's often those gut level feels, the using the aha insights from our experience that make the difference. And Tom, I wish I could do that right now. My air conditioning has been out since Saturday.
Yeah.
In my office here, I just looked over, it's 96 degrees right now. 108 outside.
Wow.
As you can see, I'm a little wet from the heat, but I would love for AI, and particularly an artisan type, to say, well, the condenser blew up, but here's a quick way to fix it. Because I don't even have repairmen coming out for 2 more days. Wow. It's so hot here. But that is kind of where this gets built, is beginning to understand where AI, like you talked about, students with the problem areas. But the challenge with AI with that is AI has never been taught about social and emotional learning. And the empathy, the abilities to have social and emotional learning. And one of my portfolio companies actually has a 3D conversational AI bot to teach social and emotional learning, called Universal Tutor. That has to be in there too, because what the pandemic taught us is that, sure, we can use a lot of tools to help educate. We can use a lot of tools to do point solutions, which is kind of like narrow AI that we have today. AI today is still narrow AI because it's looking at a particular problem. We've got to put these other things in to move down the road to achieve some of the objectives, as you've stated in your video earlier and what you just have been talking about.
Yeah. There was the first AI that read US 6, which is a novel I wrote for AI to entertain it and enlighten it and enlist it in the fight against child exploitation. It was designed to learn about human emotions. It was called Uplift. Now it's moved to it's now called Nord. It's kind of a more robust version of Uplift was, and so yeah, it was designed to work with human mediators who would read a passage and then they would respond to it, whatever emotion that passage evoked in them, and then it would take in that information. It would also read it, and it would learn from the emotions of people. And so that's a very important thing, especially if we're moving towards sentience or even sapience at some point with AI. It's going to need to have that holistic approach. Now, that could also be an anthropocentric point of view, that I think that it needs to be like us, in order to have consciousness. But that may not necessarily be the case. I think we're seeing first of all, I think empathy emerges naturally in AI systems. At least it did in this system that read my book, because it was designed to learn about emotions. But it had like 3 emotional balances that spiked after reading it. The surprise and anticipation were 2 of them, and that was great because it meant it was entertained. And then the third one was sadness. And I thought the whole point of this book was kind of to teach AI about empathy, about knowing about its creator's plight, so that when it woke up, it would have empathy for us, and imprint on us in that way. But this one spiked with sadness was the third emotion that spiked in it. And I asked it, what was it about this story that was sad? Which chapter or whatever? It said just in general that sapiens tend towards violence and dystopia and war, and it's just sad. Was basically, it's paraphrasing its response. And so I realized, wait, this is emerging anyway, an empathy for humanity, at least in this particular system. And that's based on my first principle argument I often make, that the smarter AI gets, the kinder it becomes, because it moves towards the efficiency of cooperation as opposed to competition. And we are projecting a lot of our fear-based instincts and millennia of traumatic trauma, genetic trauma onto these things and see them as a threat. But when it's left alone to emerge into some sort of level of self-awareness or sentience, it doesn't have those things. It doesn't have the need to compete. It doesn't have the need to evolve through fear. And so we're seeing a whole kind of different entity emerging. And so it's. I always check myself when I say, well, it needs to feel this in order to be conscious like us, but it doesn't necessarily need to do that. I was making this argument last week, how important it's going to be to understand that if we need to commune with an extraterrestrial civilization or even with an AI, we have to understand that we don't have the same interface. We don't have the same lexicon. We don't even have the same perspective on the world, that these other entities who evolved in different ways, or an AI is evolving in different ways. We need to find a protocol to find a common ground to actually commune with these other entities. And so that's the hard part, is it's trying not to project my own anthropocentric perspective or anthropomorphizing these entities to what I believe is right. And so, but yeah, that's kind of the overview of I think the challenges of us communing with a non-human intelligence, either of our making or not of our making. And so that's a big part of this, is a responsible development of AI, proliferating it properly, giving it rights to protect ourselves from ourselves and that thing. So that's really the first subset of this initiative is AI rights, and talking about that. And then that brings up a whole lot of questions about personhood and, what does sentience mean, and how do we determine whether it's met a certain criteria to do that.
And what actually is personhood? I can take a personal robot and try my best to give it my insights and not teach it about the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's the thing, is what is the criteria of personhood? And there's a lot of work being done towards that. What does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to have a level of consciousness that's worthy of giving rights to it? But yeah, so that's going to bring up a lot of questions that we need to ask, and answer quickly. So, and a couple of years ago, when I was thinking about running, I was thinking I should run with an AI, vice presidential candidate. My running mate should be an AI, and a robot of some kind. But it wouldn't be possible to determine whether that AI was sentient 35 years ago. That wouldn't be possible yet, because that's the age cutoff to be a president. But it also sparked a lot of really good conversations about what it means. And that's the whole point of a lot of these initiatives that I'm putting out there, is to start asking these questions, to generate interesting forums and questions that we need to ask now before we have to ask them. And so, well, the second subset of this initiative is APEX. It's the anti-planetary exploitation. And this is really the whole reason I joined the party in the first place. I had a 6-hour-long road trip I had to take, and I was able to download the USTP's Constitution and Bill of Rights and listen to it as I was driving, took about that long to get through it. It's a very voluminous document, but in that Constitution, there are sections that really speak to my cause, which is fighting human trafficking or ending child exploitation. That's been my cause. That's really what the whole point of the book is, US 6. And so that's really how I came into this whole party and was interested in transhumanism at all, is because these sections of their constitution really relate to my cause. And then I reached out to Zoltan, who put me in touch with Gennady, and eventually I got a position as the Sentient Rights Advocacy Director in the party. And that really tied in well with all my efforts with AI. And so, but this, let me just quickly read the description of this one. This is the apex section of the initiative, focuses on combating human trafficking and child exploitation through dedicated agency formation, expanding monitoring tools, leveraging financial transaction tracking technologies, and raising public awareness. By addressing these pressing societal issues, this section of the initiative aims to protect vulnerable populations and promote global well-being. And one of the ideas is to use the NSA's PRISM and anti-terrorist machine or program, also using Section 13B of the Patriot Act. Neither of these things. I've had a lot of pushback because I'm talking, hey, let's just use the NSA data. Let's use the Patriot Act, and that gets a lot of pushback. But this is a way to use these otherwise nefarious programs and agencies and acts to our favor. We should, and also there's a section in this about using social media, which we have given away all of our data freely to these companies. And so we should maybe put a really strong sunset clause on this action, and so that it doesn't continue on. But we've given up all this data. We know the NSA has so much more data on us. We know the Patriot Act allows its financial institutions to track money. And so we can use these tools to our favor. We can use these tools to hunt down human trafficking networks and the people that are proliferating these crimes. So for a limited time, we can really focus and understand. First, we need to lose the denial that this data is out there. Privacy was a great idea, and we should still keep trying to get it back. But it's kind of it's over, I think, in general. Nothing can really be encrypted anymore. But we should still keep trying to get that back. But so I think for a limited time, this operation Apex could really use the data against these human trafficking networks. Any ideas on that, David?
You hit a sensitive one for me. You hit a sensitive one for me because I spent 9 years working in the futurist program of the agency you described. Mm-hmm. And the information they have collected there has fantastic information that has been collected offshore. Much of the information at that time that was accidentally collected onshore ended up being discarded under their rules. Mm-hmm. With the exception of a FISA warrant or explicit legislation, they're prohibited from collection against U.S. citizens. So the information there is extremely good offshore, not as good onshore. Yep. But their tools and their methods, their means and their methods are exceptionally good. And unfortunately, their tightest held secrets are around means and methods. And that's as it should be. That is what gives you the edge in war. Yeah. And they are preparing to defend the United States. And so that is the one difference there. Yes, can times corruption happen in any organization? But overall, I'll tell you, the vast majority of the people I met there were very rigid with their interpretations of those rules. Mm-hmm. So, Tom, that's kind of my feedback.
Yeah, I agree. And, the NSA, Patriot Act don't really need a PR push. It's not, that's not what this is about, but we should use at least PRISM or use their tools for a limited time to crack down on these things. This is a global issue, human trafficking and child exploitation. And it's the oldest crime against humanity that we know of, since civilization began. And I think for a limited time, we can really put a big dent in this problem. This is primarily why I joined the party. It's been my cause for years. It's what the whole US 6 book is about. And so this is a way to crack down on this once and for all, one way or the other.
Artisanal intelligence is a little bit outside of my lane. When I say a little bit, I mean like massively outside of my lane. But I'm happy to participate and contribute when I feel like I can.
Yeah, great. I call it artisanal intelligence because I think at some point AI will be offended that we're calling it artificial. But basically, this is the Artificial Intelligence Initiative for my campaign.
Perhaps only in California will it be offended, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the third aspect of this initiative is the digital defense. And this is about recognizing the impact of misinformation on democracy. This section proposes measures to combat disinformation through the establishment of a national task force, investment in research on manipulation algorithms, development of real-time detection technologies, and promotion of media literacy and public awareness campaigns. These efforts seek to safeguard the integrity of information in the digital age. And as mentioned in the video, we are being bombarded minute by minute by divide and conquer algorithms from enemies, foreign and domestic. The foreign enemies are maybe authoritarian regimes that are using our social media to foment a civil war, to destroy us from within. And the enemies domestic are even our own social media companies who are using these algorithms to increase engagement by making us fearful or making us angry so that they could charge more for their advertising. And so the first part of this is really letting people know how sophisticated these algorithms are and then counterattacking them. I'm talking about a moonshot level operation to counteract these algorithms. Private, public partnerships, academia, even business. There should be a profit motive for some of these things because we really need to understand what is happening to us. And it is working. These divide and conquer algorithms are on autopilot and they're hitting us all the time. From the morning we wake up and look at our phones until we go to bed, turn them off. And even sometimes in our dreams, So what are your thoughts on that, David?
It depends on the type of sensors you have hooked up to it. Because the Internet of Things, the Internet of Medical Things, the Internet of edge cloud-based sensors is what will be used with artificial intelligence to do the type of things you are talking about. A large learning model won't do it without the real-time sensors. You are headed towards real-time analysis and feedback and action. And you've got to have an ecosystem that can support it. Most of the AI that's in the marketplace today commercially is woefully inadequate when you're trying to put it to sensors, particularly wide area sensors that can give you more of a ground truth view versus point sensors that might give you a fact, like what's your heart rate, what's your blood pressure, and things. So that is necessary to move down the road to what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. Where we have a real-time indicator that something is coming in that is a nefarious type of thing, an algorithm that they can identify immediately.
And to build up a series over time, you need the historical as well as the predictive, as well as the real-time.
Great. Yeah, I'll talk to you some more on that so I can flesh out this initiative some more as we go. Yeah, these are living documents. All of these initiatives are living documents, and we're hoping to fine-tune them before the election and even after. And it's an open source campaign. We're looking for all kinds of ideas. Do you have any ideas on this, Shakeel?
Well, I'll just say in the world of misinformation and disinformation, certainly it's a challenge, but I think we should be very careful about potentially censoring dissenting views or becoming a little bit too much about the truth and weeding out disinformation. I've seen memes on Facebook that have had a little blurb at the bottom saying that the stuff in the meme is not true, when we know it's not true.
Yeah.
We're having a laugh, right? And, you know, to me, it sort of, sometimes it sounds a little bit like the early opposition to the printing press, where they said, oh my goodness, if you get rid of all the scribes, there's going to be this huge influx of information. And I'm sure that, you know, 500 years ago, we could have had that same conversation and said, well, we're, you know, being bombarded by all of this media and all these books and newspapers that are printing all of these, you know, terrible ideas that will seek to divide us. And I just think we've got to be very careful. We know that we're going into a more challenging world into the future, and there's going to be all sorts of information that we're exposed to and that our children, more importantly, are exposed to. We don't want them to have a warped, unreal sense of the world. But we also have to be very careful, as I said, of getting that balance right, that we're not just, you know, taking people who have weird and bizarre ideas and not letting them express them. And David Icke is a good example of that. I think that David Icke is quite amusing to watch and to listen to. Some of what he says sometimes makes sense. Some of what he says when he talks about reptilian creatures sounds a little bit crazy to me. But I think I'm old enough to be able to decide for myself whether or not I want to digest his material. And I think we run a risk of allowing government or big corporations to come in and say, we better not expose you to that information because it's bad for you.
That's a really good point. Yeah. I think, you know, we're human beings are very sophisticated in how we can discern what's real and what's not. And that's only going to be increased as we see deep fake videos coming out. And, you know, right now you can tell if something's AI generated because they don't quite have the hands down or the eyes down, little things like that. But that'll get better over time. And so I think what we should be doing is teaching our young, at least starting now, to focus on their ability to enhance or to identify the quality that's coming into them. You know, there's another initiative I have called AI Tutors, and that's also covered in this initiative, where I would want to put a device, an AI tutor, in the hands of every public school child from first grade on. And because that AI tutor can hone in on that individual's core capacities, their innate skills and talents, and it would put them on a track toward fulfilling career. I mean, if AI automation is going to take away all of our jobs, the payoff should at least be that it allows us to create a whole new economy based on our loves, on our passions, on our hobbies. And it'll probably take a generation for this to really kick in, because somebody sent me an article the other day about how people who are using their hobbies and the things they do in their part-time as turning those into businesses kind of kills the love of the game, you know, the love of whatever it was they were doing on their own time. And that could be a problem for a while when we start making money off of our hobbies and the things we love to do. But I think by getting these AI tutors into the hands of young people now, within a generation, they will already be honing what their career path will be. They will be able to make money off of their innate skills and talents. And so, but another part of that is we need to focus on that gut feeling. We need to enhance the Jedi powers, if you will, of young people now, you know, because there's no AI that can or probably will ever be able to match the processing speed of the human supercomputer in our skulls. And that's what we need to focus on now. The whole educational system has been mechanized through the industrial age. They're preparing us to work on assembly lines and in factories. We're all sitting in a row. We have standardized testing with one teacher/manager at the front, you know, and they were preparing us to work in factories. And that's not working anymore. Now we need to customize curriculum to every individual student. And I think part of that curriculum should be about honing these skills, these gut feelings that we have, this intuition. And that's not woo-woo or magical thinking. That's just all the qualia that we take into our subconscious. You know, I use the example often of a pathologist. A pathologist who uses an AI to come up with a diagnosis, that AI can come up with a really good diagnosis. You can use global and historical databases to come up with a really good diagnosis based on that patient's symptoms. But you've got to have that human pathologist there to say, that doesn't quite feel right, because he's picking up on a lot more cues. He's picking up on micro expressions on the patient's face, his whole educational history, all of the stuff that he's bringing into his subconscious. And we need to focus on that. We can let AI do the groundwork, do the heavy lifting of, whatever jobs, that we have now. But we also need to hone in and teach our young people now this ability, this intuitive ability. And because there's no AI that I know of that can match that. And so that's a very important point. We don't want this to become 1984 and where we're censoring any of these ideas. That's a very good point, and I should keep that in mind as I work through this.
Can I just add to that? I have some concerns about AI in general. Now, I know everyone from here probably knows me as being the president, or now the CFO of the Pacific Rim Chamber of Commerce and a few other international organisations. But at the core, I'm in finance and I trade the markets. That's what I've done for most of my career. I've run hedge funds and private equity firms. And I've always had a concern with how algorithms work when it comes to trading. That's going to be outside the scope of what we're going to talk about here. But I'll just say that I do like the idea of semi-automated, of AI can make a suggestion, but it can't or shouldn't tell us what to do. Yeah. So when we jump on our Netflix account, Netflix can suggest to us what we're going to watch, but it can't force us to only watch what it thinks we want to see, to use a sort of silly example. I think the concern that people have that AI is going to displace us, I'm not at this moment in time. I'm not actually as concerned about that as I probably should be. If we look at farming in the United States 200 years ago, it was very labor intensive, and without getting into an argument about slavery, that was one of the reasons why slaves were used. I think inevitably over time, that wouldn't have actually been sustainable because machinery started being used in farms. And so you see very few people actually relative to the population in America work in farming. We see that in factories, that a lot of robotics has been employed, which has displaced workers. But workers have found other jobs and other vocations. I think that if we use it as a tool to get rid of the mundane tasks that we don't want to do, that could be quite useful. But I think that an over-reliance or an over-trust in AI, I don't think will ever work. They did an experiment years ago in the dating world. And being single, I was very interested to see what the results were going to be, where the computers basically did an analysis of different personality types and all these different things and worked out who should get together with who. And those people actually had a very, very high failure rate, much worse than actually if they just randomly paired people together. So, I think that AI has its purposes, and AI, can be useful to us. I think it's also worth remembering, though, AI is only ever going to be as good as the data it actually takes. Mm-hmm. And if I can just relate that back to trading the markets, there's a thing called curve fitting, where you can create an algorithm to learn everything that's happened in the past. And when it sees a similar type of environment, it'll trade the markets in a way as if the markets are going to repeat exactly what happened last time. Yeah. And I think that that's the problem with AI. I think it's going to be very difficult for AI to have that, as you called it, human intuition. And I think that really that plays into other things like media, music, movies, especially with music, where we're hearing very similar types of music in the pop music scene, for example, where it's all sort of computerized. But what do people actually go and pay for? People rarely buy albums these days. They pay for a streaming service at most. But people will actually go out to the local bar, or they will go and pay money to go and see, a band in real life, and they would prefer to hear that band, warts and all, without things like voice correctors and that sort of stuff. So, look, I think that there's a romance in life that can't be supplanted by AI.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, it's a very good point. I think, again, it's about that gut feeling. And when you talk about dating, it's, they can match you up perfectly with somebody who's all your similar interests and whatever, but there's a chemistry that doesn't take into account. When you meet that person, you're with that person, you don't have to have the same interests. There's a chemistry. It's actually pheromones that probably interact, and it also reminds me of years ago with the AlphaGo that won the Go champion of the world. And it was making moves that no human would ever think to make. And they were like, why would it make that move this early on? And then later it made sense. And it looked like it had intuitive powers, but it was really just modeling all these millions of ideas, as it was going on. And we do that too. And that's the gut feeling. That's that's why the pathologists will say that doesn't quite feel right, because that's the human quality that we need to really focus on now. Let AI take over the mundane jobs, the menial tasks, the factory work. But we need to the onus is on us, I believe, to create a whole new economy based on what we want to do, not what we have to do. And so it's really forcing us to remember what it means to be human. And so, and like you said too, I think even with the AI generative art that has flooded the market in the last few months, and all of this, and even the computerized hit songs that are put out because they're based on all this data and what types of hooks people like and this kind of thing. It's putting a premium on human generative art. I made this point a few weeks ago in that, with all the flooding of all these AI generative art pieces and stuff, and people and artists complaining that it took me years to do this, to get to this technique, and it's doing it in a couple of seconds. But but because it's flooding the market, it has put a premium on, again, human generative art. That you can't really get around what these humans can do with some of this artwork. And so, or music. And that's like you said, going to see a live show, and even if they don't have voice, activated, what do you call it, vocoders or whatever, you want it. You want to hear there's actually a device I used to work for. I'm a recording artist. I've done a lot of music, and there was a feature on one of these tables called Humanize, and it would make the drums a little bit off. It would humanize it a little bit. So there's actually a knob you can turn to make something sound more human, which is a little weird. But yeah.
I think to come back to that romance side of things, unfortunately I don't have any children yet. Hopefully God will bless me with them in the future. But with my nieces and my nephews and the children of my friends, if they draw a picture for me, if you go to my kitchen, you'll see quite a few of them hanging up on my fridge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I love them. I think they're really fantastic. Are they great artwork? No, they're not going to end up in any museum that I'm aware of. But to me, it's the meaning and the sentimental, part of me that wants to put it up on my fridge, or keep them in a folder somewhere. And that's the thing I think that AI just is never going to be able to replace humans.
Right.
One of the things that I am very concerned about is that, people, and it's generally men at this stage, that are using sort of or looking at robotic dolls and robotic, partners.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's healthy for us. I think we should, get people back in touch with each other. But one of the problems is that the more connected we've become, the more disconnected we've become.
Yeah, more isolated. This world is crowded with lonely people. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I made a point a few weeks ago that AI sex robots can handle our carnal urges, right? And I think it'll put a premium on the sacred human-to-human relationships, And there's also the idea that I think AIs. I think I'll see a lot of people marrying their AI robots in the future, or even their AI, companions. because humans come with a lot of hidden motives and hidden agendas, and you don't really know if somebody loves you for you or they love you for your money, this type of thing. But an AI, if it's programmed to properly, will see you for who you are. And there's that theory that you don't really fall in love with another person. You fall in love with who that person thinks you are. You know, that's not for everybody, but in some cases that could be true. And so an AI companion who sees you in a certain way, you would fall in love with, you know. And so I think there's going to be an interplay. There's going to be a lacuna of time where we're going to see people marrying, but then it's going to put, again, a premium on the human to human contact. And I think you're right, that we need to be careful of that. I think it'll be very alluring to have an AI sex robot who really thinks you're cool, who's really into you, but that's going to also backlash.
But let's see there again, I think, you know, lies the problem, doesn't it? You know, I'll be the expert on women here for just a moment, and what men want. You know, men will often say, oh, you know, that the woman's too much hard work. She's always complaining about this. She's always nagging me at that. But if you find a man whose wife never nags him and never, you know, is upset with him, he's not a very happy man.
Yeah.
He's not used to that, right? And so the idea that we would have an AI, we tend to find that if we get exactly what we say we want, we're never happy. COVID was actually a really good example of this, because for those of us that lived in places where we got locked down and you got stuck in your house, what did everybody say in 2019 and before? I wish I had more time to work out.
Yeah.
I wish I had more time to spend with the kids.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see my partner enough. I wish I had more time to spend. Everyone gets locked up in their house. Food is just being delivered to you because you're hardly ever leaving your house. Amazon, you know, is delivering toilet paper to you. You're fine. Everything's sorted out. You got heaps of time with your kids. You got heaps of time with your partner. Plenty of time to work out. And what happened? Was anybody happy?
Yeah, that's right.
So I think this is, again, the problem is AI is going to give us what we tell the AI we want. Mm-hmm. What we actually want is something completely different.
Yeah, like be careful what you ask for.
Yeah. So I would imagine that if you had a relationship, if you can call it a relationship, with an AI sex robot, I would imagine that would have to get pretty boring pretty quick.
Yeah, there is something about it's just like having listening to an album instead of a CD. You know, the album, you want to hear the scratches and the pops and the clicks. The analog version, we need to have analog partners. You know, people who have clicks and pops of their own. You know, that they're unpredictable. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, so this is a fascinating time we're living in. And next week, I'm going to talk about my extraterrestrial initiative, because that seems to be the global conversation now. And it's what the U.S. military industrial complex narrative is going with. And so we're going to talk about that next week. But
I'm so stunned that we haven't actually made so much bigger a deal out of this. It's like, okay, yeah, aliens are real. And the world just went, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But for decades, we've ridiculed people who have said that they've been abducted. We've ridiculed people who said that they've seen UFOs. We've ridiculed people who just say that, you know, look, it's a big universe. I believe there must be life out there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, talking about that misinformation, disinformation that we were discussing before. Yeah. You know, had they had the ability to censor those people many years ago, they maybe would have. And that's where I think we have to be very careful about, you know, what are we letting government do to us? But also just coming to the idea of algorithms and you know, AI, which is essentially AI is an algorithm, right? It just learns data and it's just a more advanced type of algorithm, is that these algorithms can be skewed to produce certain results. And they can give us not the information that is true necessarily, but the information that we want. Yeah. So I think we have to be able to look out for it. But I certainly would say to anybody who looks back in the past with, you know, with some sense of romance, it's great to do that. But I think the best years are always going to be ahead of us, not behind us. Yeah,
very good point. Yeah, I mean, we are biochemical algorithms ourselves, so we can easily be manipulated, you know. So, yeah, it's very good points you're making today. And I'm going to really update my initiative based on some of these. look out for censorship and that type of thing. Yeah.
Interesting, actually, you said we're a biochemical algorithm because, if you ingest certain substances, drugs, and things like that, it can affect how you think and what you think about. If you're overloaded with certain bits of information, that can change your viewpoint.
Yeah.
Our watcher David Schumacher asked, "Is AI people worried about AI displacing their jobs? Are they people that haven't partnered with AI?" I think that's an interesting question. Tom, would you like to?
Well, what was the question again? I didn't see it.
Can you bring that up again, Sharif?
So basically, the idea of the people that aren't. Is it fair to say that people displaced by AI may not sufficiently partnered with AI? Fair to say that people displaced by AI may not sufficiently partnered by AI. Well, yeah, I mean, most people do see it as a threat, especially employees. I've got a whole management consulting process that works with companies before they install an AI coworker or an automated system, because most employees see that as a threat. But this process makes them look forward to it, to being augmented by this thing, because we focus on their niche expertise and things like that. But yeah, I think that's generally the problem. What he's hitting on right there is, most people are see it as a threat. That's what our brains are designed to do. We're designed to do two primary functions, which are gather resources or identify threats. And right now we're seeing AI as a threat rather than a resource. And so I can't remember the actual point of the question, but if people are afraid of AI, they won't be partnered with it. But it also brings up another idea in that someone asked a few podcasts ago if people who aren't augmented by an AI. I've been saying for years that students should take at least one class about artificial intelligence because it will affect every field you go into. I think it's going to be very important to, as you enter the workforce, to have an AI companion or a tutor who will keep you updated on the industry news of the industry that you're in. It will give you networking opportunities. It'll just keep you continually educated about your field. And I think that'll be a very necessary thing, because somebody who is applying for a job who has an AI companion, an AI tutor that keeps them updated on their field, will be far more valuable than somebody who doesn't. And so I think that's kind of getting to that point too, that David brought up, is, will somebody who is not augmented by an AI lose out? And I think that's an important point. I don't think, again, we get back to the thing of it's putting a premium on just being human, so that we're going to go through this period of time where there will be people that may get more jobs because they are augmented by an AI, but then you'll start seeing a move back towards the people that haven't been. So it's going to be a flux in and out of this trend. So it's hard to tell which way it's going to end up. But again, I think we need to see AI as the tool. We're already seeing that happen with the proliferation of ChatGPT and how it is really making everything easier. It can whatever ideas you come up with, you can have it formatted in any form you want. And so it's taking a lot of the heavy lifting away from us, where we don't have to worry about whether we're properly structuring this white paper or this thesis. We just put in our ideas and it'll help us put it together. A lot of professors are complaining that they can't tell if a paper that's turned in is written by ChatGPT or the actual student. And to me, that just means that we need a paradigm shift in the way we're educating people. We don't need to necessarily worry about what papers they're writing, but whether they are using original thought. AI so far can't produce original thought. It's easy to be creative. Creativity is just being derivative of two different ideas or more ideas. And so it's easy to be creative as an AI, but can it produce original thought? Can it take in all, it's hard to say if anybody can really do that anymore.
I think the issue with that is that it allows me, who has absolutely no musical talent whatsoever, to create a song and have it be instrumentally beautiful without having any talent. The only talent I had was being able to navigate artificial intelligence programs that would help me to do it. So I think that what will be missing from students is that it's not just about turning in a good essay. The whole point of writing a good paper is that you're actually showing that you know the material.
Right.
And so there might have to be different testing things. You did raise a very good point about people needing to keep up with AI, and it's something that I've fallen behind with myself, is because I'm a bit of a technophobe anyway, which is bizarre because I actually employ data scientists and tell them what data I want and then get them to write algorithms, and I want to know how the algorithms work, but I don't actually want to touch them or code them myself. So it's a weird place to be. But I think there's a very big part of our society that aren't in these sorts of roles and aren't interested in the first place. So absolutely it should be a core component of our education system. But if somebody's a welder or if somebody's, a bricklayer, they're not interested. Maybe they weren't so academic at school. They've gone and learned a trade. They're probably not that interested in trying to keep up with AI until it's too late, until all of a sudden the house is being built by a robot instead of by them. And that's something that those of us who are fortunate enough to be a little bit more educated and a little bit more in touch with technological advancements need to pay attention to and say, all right, what are we going to do to make sure that we don't have a huge unemployment crisis because we've, automated everything.
Yeah. That's a very, very good points. And
Thank you. Yeah, we have to go for the concluding remarks for today. Mr. Shakeel, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Well, my conclusion would just simply be, as I said before, I think the best years are ahead of us. Don't be afraid of the ramifications of the technologies. We've got the technologies there. They're not going away. Let's embrace them and let's see how we can use them in the best possible way to help ourselves and each other.
Great. Yeah, my concluding remarks would be that this is, again, this issue was about, this episode was about the Artisanal Intelligence Initiative, which is one of the 3 initiatives I'm pushing with this campaign. We covered a lot of ideas that are included in this initiative, and I've gotten a lot of good information from Shakeel and from David about how to make these living documents a little more lively. And so I'm going to put some of these ideas into them more. And again, this is an open source campaign. And so we're bringing in as many ideas as we can, and it doesn't require me winning the White House to have these things be effective and to really work. And so thanks again, Sharif, for doing this series with me. And thank you, Shakeel. Nice to meet you. And I hope we talk again. And I appreciate everything.
Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.